People have this preconception that you are just swinging wildly at each other, and there's certainly an element of that. I think like last year alone I had four hurls broken across me, 2 across my chest and 2 across my legs, so that definitely is an element of the game. But at the same time you kind of become conditioned in the same way a boxer becomes conditioned to being punched in the face, or an MMA fighter becomes conditioned to being choked out. You just ignore it. It doesn't really affect you. So I think certainly knocks and bumps and bruises are part and parcel of any sport.
We play darts.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Any Given Runday podcast. Myself, Seán, here, along with Eric, Nolan, and Mr. Aaron. I don't know, I should have said Mr. Nolan and Aaron, but we're going to go with that anyway. In this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about Conor's journey, that's Nolan, over the next 16 weeks leading towards Madrid. Conor plays GAA as well as doing a marathon, so we're going to be talking about how those intertwine, or how one may kind of mess up the other. As we discovered from the very first episode of this podcast, you are a halfback. What is a halfback?
Yeah. So again, it depends. It depends on how lucky I am. But yeah, so I suppose halfback or fullback would be my kind of my positions. Halfback would be, I suppose, what many people would recognise is when a ball's poked out. They're usually the person who's trying to catch a ball.
Right.
So you're kind of towards the middle of the field. So that's kind of, I suppose, kind of where I like to play.
Yeah.
Don't always get to. But yeah, I suppose part and parcel of that is that in terms of your kind of athletic style, you need to have a level of pace, and physicality as well, because you're winning high ball, you're breaking tackles, you're making tackles, and if you're getting far enough up the field, shooting as well.
So you have to have a bit of size on you, which obviously if you look at the typical marathon runner, they're anything but having a bit of size on them. Like I talk about elite level, obviously we're not talking about you doing elite marathons, but the less weight you have on you, obviously the easier it's got to be to do a marathon. So you got to try to balance out. So your training schedule will be just hurling and running then, and trying to balance it out, losing a bit of weight or keeping weight, or what's the story? Yeah,
so I suppose kind of going back to your initial kind of comment. So I mean, in terms of kind of a hurling size, there really isn't kind of one size fits all. I mean, as a hurler, if you're a little bit lighter, it means you're quicker. You have that little bit more kind of nimble aspect to your game. From my perspective, I like to be a little bit bigger. I like to be physical. That's what suits me. But certainly that doesn't translate well to long distance running. In terms of kind of what my normal hurling training looks like. So at the moment we're about to begin the new season coming in at the start or the end of this month. Training will usually be twice, if not 3 times a week, and that'll either be or group sessions, or there may be potentially a match involved in there as well. And then obviously going back to when I did the last marathon, what I was doing was using those 3 sessions as my kind of my short distance run, or what I would have using them instead of a short distance run. So anything between 10 or 15k, I would say, look, my hurling session is that session, and then implementing a kind of a longer run then, whichever day would suit me best. So let's say, for example, if I was training on a Saturday morning, I would wait until Sunday evening to do my long distance run. I would have Monday off usually, and I'd train then again with hurling on the Tuesday. So trying to find that, I suppose, that kind of recovery zone was really probably the toughest part.
Yeah. So the long run then, after matches and stuff. So when would your first competitive game be in the hurling season? So
I suppose the way our season runs is that we would kind of play an inter-county league. So that usually kicks off kind of the middle to the end of February, and those matches will be once every 2 weeks usually. Our league then starts kind of the end of March, start of April, and then encompassing league, championship, I suppose, depending on how far you go in those competitions, we would play probably up until October time.
So I mean, you're getting, for lack of a better term, a couple of smacks playing hurling on a Saturday or Sunday, and then you're getting out doing the long run then the Sunday evening, because there's no other time. How much more difficult is it to do that long run, or do you feel like you kind of loosen out after a kilometre or 2 running and kind of get into it, or what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose first and foremost, I mean, people you use the word barbarian talking about hurling, and I think people have that.
He's not wrong.
We
had to tell you to wear helmets.
We're taking bars off the front of the face guards. Yeah. No, look, I think people have this preconception that you are just swinging wildly at each other, and there's certainly an element of that. I think like last year alone I had four hurls broken across me, 2 across my chest and 2 across my legs, so you know, that definitely is an element of the game, but you know, at the same time, you kind of become conditioned in the same way a boxer becomes conditioned to being punched in the face, or an MMA fighter becomes conditioned to, you know, being choked out. You just ignore it. It doesn't really affect you. So, you know, I think certainly knocks and bumps and bruises are part and parcel of any sport. You know,
I play darts.
might stuck your toe coming you know, but you know, I think it's that, you know, it's that, I suppose, kind of recovery wise, that's so important. And as well, it's something that I'm perhaps not as good as I should be at. It's something I'm working on. But then having that time frame whereby you say, look, in between the last hurling session or match and the next long distance run, how are you preparing yourself for that day?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, obviously with hurling, everything is changing direction. It's a phenomenally skillful game. I know we're slagging there because we're ignorant of the sport. We're useless at it, but the change of direction, everything is so quick in the change of direction, the change of foot. How do you find that kind of element of training? We mentioned the injury prevention and stuff. That kind of element of the training to the long distance. Are you finding any benefit out of running long distance into the hurling game, and vice versa? And how do you manage the injury prevention with the constant running as well as the change of direction? It is a lot on the body.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, obviously with hurling, it's a 60-minute game. You know, I think that they did studies and they reckon that the furthest you'll ever run at full pace in a hurling match is about 800 meters, and that's what it's most akin to from an athletic standpoint. So, you know, obviously doing any kind of additional exercise is going to benefit you just simply from, you know, from a fitness standpoint. What I would say is that I think there's great benefits, you know, from playing a team sport and then translating that to an endurance event, because not only I suppose you have that fitness base, and I mean, I compare myself to, you know, when I ran my first marathon in 2018, I wasn't playing hurling at the time. I was a little bit heavier as well. I definitely struggled in comparison to the year just gone. You know, when I had played a full season, but also, you know, I suppose you're kind of, and Eric touched on it as well, I suppose, you know, your mindset coming into these kind of challenges, you know, being able to, you know, I suppose to push through any kind of pain, you know, certainly that's something that's kind of bred into any GAA player. You know, you're not rolling around the ground, you're not diving, you know, you break a finger, you break a leg, you suck it up and you go on. You know, so I think that, you know, just going back to simply, you know, run the two different, I suppose, styles of running, you know, as Eric kind of mentioned about the heart rate zones. So, you know, when you're in a kind of a hurling training session, the runs are shorter, they're quicker. You know, the time for recovery is reduced. You know, that's obviously improving your cardiovascular fitness.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about direction change. That's not something I suppose I would have noticed too much. And again, you're absolutely in hurling, you're twisting, you're turning. You know, in marathon running, it's straight and long. Up and down is maybe, you know, the only kind of difference when you got a hill. But I think, you know, for the most part, there's elements of both which complement each other in you know, in their own ways.
I think when people set up to do a marathon, one of the things that puts them off is a 16-week training program and the amount of time that goes into those 16 weeks and running 3-4 times a week. How do you struggle with time in terms of, I know you get your long run in, you got 3 hurling sessions in, would there be any other running sessions you get in during the week, or would it be a gym work, or is it just it comes down to a lack of time because there's only 7 days in the week and you need that recovery day and stuff in as well? What's going on? Yeah,
good question. You know, I think that, look, you know, time is the essence for everyone. We all have 24 hours in the day, and it's how we use them is what the differentiator is. I think for me, it's about being a little bit clever with my time. Similar to yourself, Seán, you know, I love the gym, you know, and what I try to do is get 2 if not 3 gym sessions in to complement the hurling, to complement the long distance running as well. You know, but you're absolutely right, recovery is such a massive part of any kind of sport these days that it's important to have that set aside. For me, when I think of recovery, I obviously think of sleep and nutrition and hydration, but, you know, I also think of, you know, of still using the body in a constructive way. So, you know, my recovery days would consist of maybe light running, or I might, you know, jump on a bike or a rowing machine, do some foam rolling, some stretching. It's not about just simply lying there sitting on the couch eating popcorn. Though certainly that's I'm not going to say I've never done that. You know, but, you know, that's certainly that's certainly kind of, I think, part and parcel of trying to do a couple of things at once. You know, the other thing, I mean, you know, 16 weeks is a long time, but, you know, certainly, like, I think back to my first marathon, I remember, you know, life kind of got in the way, and all of a sudden I was looking at a marathon and 8 weeks to go and no training done. And not to plug Coach Seán or anything like that, but you know, certainly there was you know, the guys at this table certainly helped me get ready for that and get through that. You know, even last year, you know, I don't feel like, you know, I probably trained properly for the marathon, but still, you know, improved my time. I think this year with 16 weeks, a proper plan in place, a little bit of accountability in this podcast, you know, I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's a good point you just touched on there as well, in terms of like, you never do a marathon on your own. You physically run the race yourself, but there's a support network there of people around you. People, one, who have to listen to you. Two, the people that, again, have to look after you when you're sore, you're sick, you can't bend down, you've had a long run, and then you've the girlfriends, the boyfriends, the mothers, the fathers, sons, daughters, people who come out and support you, cycle a bike beside you when you're on a long run to keep you company. Like a marathon or a 16-week program can be daunting, especially when you feel like you're going on your own. And I suppose that's what we're trying to do here. You have your teammates. So when you're playing hurling, maybe I'm stepping over here, but you have your teammates, so it doesn't feel like you're doing 16 weeks of training, because you have people around you. You're doing your interval training, even though it's based on hurling, but it's still building the fitness. But it's about the network of people around you, the people who are going to support you the whole way through. As you mentioned, when you're feeling down, how am I going to do this? There's people there to go, yeah, it's okay, this is normal, let's keep pushing on. And that's what a marathon is about. I think is definitely, don't look at it as 16 weeks. It's looking at it as a challenge that you and a group of your closest are going to do together, and they're the ones that kick you out when it's raining as well. You said you were going for a run. Yeah. I always stop eating popcorn on the couch.
Well, I always remember tell the story. A lot of people of 3 weeks out for the marathon, and I'd gone out for a work night out on the Friday night, and we had planned on doing it was supposed to be a 20k run to Phoenix Park the next day. And I remember waking up in bed at 11:30. I just texted Seán. I said, I'm in bits, can we maybe move it to tomorrow? I just got a reply, no. So end up.
I got pushed it back an hour in my defence.
Okay, end up in the Phoenix Park. Ended up doing a 27k run in the lashing rain, and in fairness, it was one of the best training runs we did. You know, but like I think, you know, obviously, you know, support networks are so important. But in the same way, I think that, you know, kind of the reason that I wanted to do kind of any kind of endurance event in the first place was just to find that challenge and kind of, you know, to see if I could do it. You know, like I said, I'd taken a bit of time off from hurling. I wanted to try something different. I'd obviously seen what the marathon event looked like, just from supporting people, you know, running it yourself and Eric, and then obviously my auntie prior to that. You know, and I think that, you know, I think there's something incredibly satisfying about simply just, you know, setting yourself a target and saying, look, you know, am I made of this? Can I do it? And then from there, I suppose, kind of, you know, obviously once that's been achieved, it's about, right, what's the next thing now? Is it about improving my time? Is it about, you know, kind of, you know, finding a kind of a longer distance to run? Is it about a triathlon or an Ironman? You know, I think that probably the scariest thing is, you know, in life is just about kind of that fear of just ending up at a point in time where you just realise I didn't do anything myself. And I never really found out what I was made of. So I think for me, that's kind of, that's part and parcel of kind of the marathon running. It is something that, you know, I didn't grow up doing or ever had any real aspirations to do, you know, but now I want to see what my body can do.
Yeah, and that accountability helps big time. Like I tell people when I'm coaching, I was like, talk about it. You know, put up a picture of yourself, you know, at the gym. Don't do a mirror gym selfie and showing your t-shirt up and showing the abs, stuff like that. But
why did that? People would leave the gym.
Yeah, but just somewhat talk about it. Tell a small circle of people, by the way, I'm doing this challenge. And to your point, Eric, they will be like, they'll kick you out of the house one day. It's like, you said you were doing this, you know, you know, back yourself up. And sometimes, you know, it could be that fear of I told people it's going to run a marathon, and there is times, and we're all going to face it during this, where we're like, I really don't want to do this. Now, we took the accountability to the next level by doing a podcast and telling a lot more people about that. But I mean, most people have their Instagrams or Facebook, stuff like that, and all it is just a quick little story, and then or even if it's in the gym, you're trying to lose a bit of weight and you're telling someone about it, and they come over to you the next time gym, how you getting on with such and such? You're like, well, that person noticed. Now I'm going to talk about it, and that builds myself up to keep on going from that as well.
100%. Accountability is huge, you know, but I still maintain, I think you have to have that kind of that inner desire to do it. You know, accountability will only go so far, but if you're really on the fence about it or you don't really care, you know, that there's no point.
But I think as well, people shouldn't be afraid to fail. Like, failure is not even trying in the first place.
Exactly.
You know, like, accountability is one thing, and if some people aren't comfortable telling people I'm trying to run a marathon because they're afraid of the failure. They've possibly tried and failed before. I think one of the biggest lessons we've all learned, especially from doing one, and something you hopefully will learn on this, is you're going to become accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you miss a session and then you go for the next one and you're feeling like, oh, I kind of wish I did a few other training sessions or something, and it has happened to each of us, that's when you're going to learn, like, it doesn't matter what I tell people, at the end of the day it's just me and the road. But I think it's important as well that people try no matter what, if you've even thought about it, just don't be afraid of failing, because that is a key thing. Like, failure is not even starting, you know?
Well, the first one I did, you know, I talked about it on my social media, I put it on my blogs, I wouldn't shut up about it. I told my boot camp ladies about it, and then the first one got done, I was like, fuck, I failed. And I felt awful. But, you know, I did it, but I didn't do it. I told people I was doing it in 4 hours, and I did it in 5 hours, so I definitely failed. But I thought it was going to be this massive thing, but all it was a couple of jokes and that was it, and move on. It was just, I built it up to be this huge, massive, oh man, what am I going to do about it? I was like, there was like, you did it, fair play to you, move on. But to me, I'd set those lofty standards for some stupid ego reason that I shouldn't. I had no business setting those standards with the amount of training, everything else I did. But it was all in my head, and because I failed that time, it led me on to do better the next time. But that's to your point. It's just, you know, a failure. We all have different levels of what this is, like different times. I mean, I could tell you did a marathon in 3:30. That means nothing, because it could be someone who broke the world record and did it in 2 hours, and it could be someone who did a first ever marathon. And the numbers mean nothing. It's the person that did the numbers is what really counts.
Absolutely.
Just before we wrap up this one, you know, you talk about the desire and stuff. You're doing pre-season hurling training. Is that like pre-season training in any other sport where they kind of like you run till you damn near get sick on top of marathon training?
Pretty much, yeah. So I suppose we've actually had a new manager coming into place this year, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of system they implement. But as a rule, you know, the first, I suppose, kind of 4 weeks it's pretty dogged. It's, you know, group gym sessions, a lot of running. If you see a ball, you're doing really well. Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
Don't know why he's nodding his head, Eric. You're a goalkeeper.
You've never seen.
You were a goalkeeper pre-season training. Did you have to do all that? What's the point in you doing all that?
Different kind of training.
You were the first. I'd say you were the first person to run out and go hamstring. No, sorry lads.
Different kind of training.
See you in February.
All core work.
Those planks must be tough for the lads that do
actually, I have one now. This is one of my pet hates about the GAA. I do these endurance races so I can have a drink after them. What's the story with drinking bans?
No comment.
No, we need a comment on that. But I'm gonna say,
like, I understand, right? I understand that, yeah, alcohol can have an interference with it, like, but you know, why? What is the thinking behind it? What has it done? Why does it cause so much rice when I see an ex out having a pint?
Yeah, no, look, I think it's a little bit of a couple of things. Like, look, it's first.
I'm not advocating alcohol and any stretch.
Well, it certainly sounds like you were.
Well, I mean, you'd have Premier League players after a game to go out for
exactly. So I think this idea, like, of a drinking ban, it's just bred into the GAA because it kind of it creates that accountability and trust in each other, right? So you know, that's, I think, what it kind of stemmed from. But ultimately it's draconian, because you see the likes of, you know, rugby players, soccer players, you know, even during the World Cup, you know, when the turnaround time is 4 or 5 days between matches, or a little bit longer, but you know, they're having a beer, they're enjoying themselves. I think the GAA is probably a little bit lax, or it's a little bit behind the times in terms of kind of how they address alcohol. And the problem you have is that because there's these drinking bans implemented for, you know, weeks, months on end, when guys get a chance to actually go out and have a drink and enjoy themselves, they go to the extreme. You know, so you create this, I suppose, kind of abuse of alcohol in some instances that's just needless. To be honest, I think that, you know, to be very fair, you know, Maynooth is brilliant, and it's very forward thinking in the sense that, you know, everyone knows what their limits are, everyone knows that, you know, what's expected of them. So if you go out and have a drink on a Saturday, that's fine, but you're going to be running on Sunday and you'll be there. So, you know, going back to how you feel missing a session, it's the exact same. If you want to go out and have a few pints on a Saturday night,
I absolutely admire it. I do. I just never understood it. I was like, sure, I'm going off doing a triathlon, but I've finished this one and I've had 4 or 5 drinks and I've gone home, and to me it's a calorie intake, like, you know.
We're replenishing the stores,
absolutely, And I suppose I had played GAA in my teenage years. I was never in the adult years of playing GAA, so I never understood. But I hear about the drinking ban, I'm like, Why?
Especially throughout the entire summer.
It's
Your holidays are all taken from you.
I don't get, like, have a match on a Sunday. Oh, you can't have a point after the match on a Sunday. Like, okay, you're banned for like 3 months. Like,
anyway. I think just to finish, I know you're probably tight for time. I think it is blown out of proportion a little bit as well. I think that anytime with kind of drinking ban is mentioned, it's in kind of preparation for a big series of games. They become thick and fast. You know, it's not a case of, you know, and look at you see kind of various comedy sketches around. Right, that's it. It's the 1st of January, and you won't drink until you're 35, like you retire.
But I suppose we're already outside looking at, like, when does championship season start?
That's usually kind of towards kind of end of May, start of June.
That's usually during barbecue season as well. So
It
the
is.
big drinking ban during leading up to that, then I'm assuming, and onwards, or is that also blown out of proportion?
As I said, it's a new manager. We'll see what happens.
I know, but in fairness, I do admire the guys and girls out there that do take on that. Especially, we know the social aspect that it is in Ireland, and it is a big thing, and particularly in the sports, the other ones, you know, teams go out and for drinks and stuff like that. That's why I was just curious. But it is a form of discipline. It is
absolutely.
Likewise, people will take to not drinking during the build up to this. It is a great discipline. I know we're slagging and stuff, but it's a fantastic thing to be able to say we're not and do it, and the trust you were talking about, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, at the same time, we're being a little bit hypocrites, because there's going to be people listening to this podcast going, hang on, where are you going at the end of April? Oh, Madrid. And you're doing a marathon instead of having a massive piss up. What's going on, you know? So we're a little bit hypocritical there, but we will have a few drinks and stuff leading up to it.
Yeah, but it's not a be all and end all. No, is. It's just a good insight into it that I didn't really understand, to be honest.
No, neither did I. To be honest, I would have been I would have played soccer.
Fair play to all you boys and girls that do stick off.
Yeah, and look, and to be fair, you know, I think, you know, certainly there's probably other teams that are maybe a little bit stricter. You have to remember, like, I'm playing hurling in Kildare. It's not exactly at all Ireland standard by any means. So, you know, maybe, you know, inter-county level, you know, there's a different kind of a mentality there. But, you know, for ourselves, you know, there's a big commitment and buy-in, despite the level we're hurling at. But, you know, there's a bit of trust there as well.
Well, hopefully you'll have no alcohol and you'll be the best marathon runner out of us all.
There you go. What are you in for? 3:30?
Let's see. It's hot over there.
It's warm, yeah.
On that note, I go wrap up this. I don't know about you guys, I could do with a drink after. Thank you again for listening to this week's episode of Any Given Runday podcast. Keep continuing to share the podcast on your Instagram stories, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the rest. We really do appreciate it. And that's pretty much it from us. Take care.